What is up, BookTube? It is Monty, and today I'm here to do my December wrap-up. Welcome to 2021. I have 16 books to talk about, so I don't know what the thumbnail for this looked like, but hopefully it was on point. If it wasn't, it's because it is currently 1:55 in the morning time. I'm going to do this in the order that I read them, with the exception of the Necromancers Bride by Brianna Hale. I read this during a live reading sprint session on Deja's channel. I read this on live. It was a Kindle Unlimited novella situation. It was erotica about a necromancer. It was disgusting. 12 out of 10. Do not recommend. Please do not read this. I do not care if you are a Kindle Unlimited subscriber already. It's not worth it. Don't do it. I did it. I regret it. I will never get that time back. I've been permanently scarred. Now, some of these I'm not going to get too much into. Like the first three, I'm going to hold up together at the same time. And that is, I finished out the Throne of Glass series. So, Empire of Storms, book number 5, ruined me as a human being. I'm not the same person that I was before I read this. I think this is an excellent installment. It ends, a lot of the Throne of Glass books end off on a cliffhanger, but this one more so than some of the others. Again, just emotionally traumatized. Then I moved on to Tower of Dawn, which was book number 6. Yes, I can count. Book number 6, and again, was not the same person. I think this one echoes The Assassin's Blade in a lot of beautiful ways. This one, again, is Kale's book, so a lot of people don't fuck with it. But I did. I fucked with it. So in this one we get perspectives of Kale, Nesrin, and Irene on the southern continent, as Kale is there to try and gather some troops from the southern continent to fight, you know, the war in the north, as, you know, shit's going down up there. And it's a lot of interesting pieces get unlocked. I personally really loved this one. Even though the whole cheating storyline, which I talked about many a time already, wasn't a fan of, but still, overall, really liked this book a whole lot. And then I concluded with Sarah J. Maas's Kingdom of Ash. This book wrecked me. Well, it didn't wreck. This book did almost make me cry. Not gonna lie. And it was a character that I'd previously not really fucked with, so shout out, props to Miss Maas there. Clearly the talent is impeccable. But I think this is a really well done conclusion. A lot of the pieces, again, kind of maybe I wouldn't have wanted them to be there, but you know, it is what it is. I enjoyed it overall. Would recommend. I think that Throne of Glass is Sarah J. Maas's best series thus far. And I'm sad that I've read all of them and I will no longer be able to experience them for the first time. After my Sarah J. Maas marathon, I moved on to Elizabeth Gilbert's City of Girls, which I didn't intend for the lipstick to match this one, but I guess it kind of does. But this is a story that is set in the 1940s, and it kind of goes from there. So it starts in the 1940s. Our main character, Vivian, is an upper-class woman. She's like 19. She just recently got kicked out of... It's not Wesleyan. Was it Smith? She got kicked out of college, okay? And so she's gone to live with her aunt in New York City, and it chronicles the life Vivian has there. The framing device of this one is Vivian has been written a letter. Vivian receives a letter from this woman named Angela, whose father has passed away, and Angela wants to know what Vivian meant to her father. It does give Seven Husbands vibes, but I think this is far better than Seven Husbands, so love to see this one. Then I read The Prom by Sandra Mitchell, because I watched The Prom like 5 times after it dropped on Netflix, and I've been marathoning, well, not marathoning, but I've had the the soundtrack on repeat, maybe, potentially. It's neither here nor there, but this just didn't do it for me. I thought that it would work for me because I really wanted more of Emma and Alyssa's storylines in the musical, and this is a novelization following Emma and Alyssa and their storylines. But Alyssa continued to just give the short end of the stick, and I was ultimately just frustrated with how this book was written. So justice for Alyssa. Justice for Alyssa Green continued to be fucked over. I went on and picked up This Is My America by Kim Johnson. This is a story of... Her name is not... What is her name? Oh my Jesus. I'm so terrible. Tracy. So Tracy's father has been incarcerated for a significant... I want to say it's been like a decade. Could be wrong there. Her father has been, you know, like I said, incarcerated for a decade. Her brother, her older brother, is like a track star. And so they use... Tracy, not they. Tracy decides to kind of take a local interview her brother is doing at like this news station to try and get attention for her father's case because he's been, she's arguing that he's been unjustly convicted of the crime. I think he is convicted of like murdering these two people he was like in business with. It was like this married couple he was going to do some land development for or something. And so she's been trying to get her father out of prison, and then her brother winds up being accused of murdering one of his classmates. And so that kind of parallel storylines. Ultimately, I don't think I gave this a rating on Goodreads. I gave it, in my mind, it's like a 3-star book. Like, it was interesting. I think that Tracy was a really great character to follow. I thought that she was compelling, and I could understand her motivations at every angle. I just don't think that the romance really hit for me, particularly because I just did not care about that little boy finding out his parents were racists, not to get into spoilers. So, like, it wasn't for me. I think that I think this is a book that people should have, and, like, I can understand why other people might like this, but for me, it was a miss. But I do think that, again, I'm not mad that I read it. I'm not mad that I own it. It's not a book I would unhaul. That was going to be my final book. I was perfectly content to end my reading year there. And then I picked up A Court of Mist and Fury, which I recently spurred the edges of. Beautiful, you love to see it, but I hated this book. I have a whole, like, 10-minute discussion of why I hate Rhysand, so, like, I'll leave that linked in the cards for sure. I just didn't like this. I don't understand the hype of this one. I think that this book is... It's just not the moment. Like, the plot didn't work, Rhysand didn't work, Feyre didn't work. I was just disgusted a lot of the time reading this because... Well, I don't want to say I was disgusted, but I do think that my ultimate criticism of this and why this book does not work for me is that Feyre is kept in the dark for so much of it. And this book is very long. So she's kept in the dark for so much of this book that it's not really fun to read because I don't know what's happening. Feyre doesn't know what's happening. And so a lot of things that happen don't really make sense, and you just kind of have to, like, trust that at some point they will, which is never a good look for me because I'm never going to trust the character because it won't click for me the way I think that it's supposed to. But also because nothing happens in this one, I think that it sets up ACOWAR to, like, just fall flat on its face, which I don't think that it does. I think that given what Sarah wanted to do with the series and given what she did with all of this, like, ACOWAR had to be that way. So, for me, this was a miss. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Y'all can fight over Rhysand, but I won't be there for those discussions. After I read A Court of Mist and Fury, I knew that that could not be my final read of the year. And I kind of refused to let that be my final read of the year. Maybe I ultimately shot myself in the foot with that one, but it is what it is. But I went on to read the first 3 installments in the Gossip Girl universe, which I promised y'all a reading vlog of like months ago. And then I started reading these, and there's just no way I could have vlogged it because it lasted all of like 3 hours. But that's Gossip Girl, You Know You Love Me, and All I Want Is Everything. All I Want Is Everything is, like, low-key a Christmassy read. It, like, spans, like, from Christmas to New Year's, which I was not expecting. All of these, I really cannot recommend people read. They are definitely a product of the early 2000s. They are definitely not where you would go for any kind of nuanced discussions of eating disorders or underage drinking or underage smoke. Like, it's just full of questionable content. Written in a very questionable manner that I don't really know if I could, like, endorse fully, but for me, I enjoyed them. I'm happy to have read them. I'm happy that I can look at this set on my shelves and know that I've read them. I'm not really interested in continuing on because none of the other covers look like this, and so they wouldn't match, and that would bother me. But if the other, I think there's like 13, but one of them I think is like a horror take on the first book, so like maybe there's only 12 more, or like 12 altogether. If they ever, like I said, if they ever come out with these matching editions, I'll be there. But for now, I'm just going to be waiting for the revival. It's not a reboot, it's a revival, because we got new characters to pop up on HBO Max. Then I received Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. It was a Christmas gift from Melanie, and I read it in a couple hours. Not a couple hours, it was like 4 or 5 hours. This is the Owl Crate edition, I suppose. This is an King Arthur retelling set in, I think it's North Carolina, and it's set at UNC Chapel Hill, I believe, if I'm correct. We follow, her name is Bree. No, it's Diana. No, it is Bree. Brianna. Y'all, I be reading things, but when I come to talk about it, I will never be convinced y'all believe me. We follow our main character, Bree Matthews, whose mother died in the prologue of this book, and as she gets to Chapel Hill, she kind of uncovers sort of her heritage, I would say, and the secret to why her mother passed away, without getting into spoilers. I think I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I know people really loved this one. It wasn't quite for me. I don't know the King Arthur legends, so I couldn't tell you what Tracy Deonn invented for her story and like what she, you know, took and integrated or whatever, but I thought all of the King Arthur stuff was like really well integrated. But I wanted more of the, I think it's called like root workers, is that what they're called? I know it's back, Rootcraft. I wanted more of that. I think that a lot of that aspect of the book was kind of glossed over a little bit for me, because they called it like colonizer, like they called what the King Arthur people were doing like colonizer magic, but we never got like an explanation of like, well, we got explanations, but I don't think it was ever delved into as deeply as the colonizer magic. And so I was like, well, if we're gonna call it colonizer magic, maybe we should like look at the source material. Maybe just an idea. I don't know. Just throw it out there. Also, the third act twist, I didn't really like it. Like, I knew in the back of my head it was gonna go there, but like I was also trying to convince myself that wasn't going to be the third act, and like she wasn't going to be that person, but she was that person, which again, I'm not holding it against the book because it is, you know, a young adult fantasy. Like, you're going to have, like, it makes sense for that to happen, but there was just something about the pieces here that didn't click personally. I do think that it sets up an interesting world, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the sequel. I think that that could potentially be a 5-star read for me, because I do think that Tracy Deonn is a very talented author, and I would be interested to see what they come out with next. Then I read one book that I don't quite know how to feel about, and that is In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle, which follows a woman in Danny, who is at the start of the book. It's set in our present day, 2020, but you know, the 2020 we could have had where people got to go around and like live their lives. Not the one we actually had, but whatever. Danny is living her life. And then one night she goes to sleep and she kind of has like a vision, a prophecy mayhaps, a glimpse into her future, and she's kind of confused because she's not in the apartment that she's currently in. It's not the apartment she's planned to live in. The man in her apartment is not her current boyfriend she's been dating for like since law school. And it's just all these questions. And originally I didn't quite like it because all of the praise on the book is talking about it being like this heartwarming, heartbreaking, like romance, and like all of these like very, but what the book ultimately becomes is not a romance. There's the whole middle part of the book is dealing with Danny's best friend suffering from ovarian cancer and like a pregnancy that wasn't actually real. And so lots of like themes of grief and grieving and just suffering with cancer, and it was very odd and not what I was expecting to read. And then the last part of the book, like the last third of the book, when we finally get to that glimpse of the future and we get to see how that night, the framing device, like how it played out more than the glimpse we saw in like the second chapter, I was kind of here for it. And so it went from being like a 2-star read to like maybe a 3 or a 4. And it's really strange. So I don't think I actually rated this on Goodreads, and I don't quite know how I feel about it. But I do think that Rebecca Searle did something really interesting here, and so I might check out the dinner list that they've written. I think they have some other stuff they've written. Oh, they wrote Famous in Love? I did like that CW. It wasn't on the CW. That was on Freeform. That was a good little book. So I might check out some more Rebecca Searle, because I do think that she did something really interesting here. And she did something very interesting in a very short book. After in 5 years, you know I had to do it. This was the inspiration for today's lip color. And I read A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book, no longer the final book, in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. We have an epic conclusion. I think that a lot of people don't quite like this one. Not gonna say that I'm in that group, because I gave this 4 to 5 stars on Goodreads. Again, you're not going to convince me that Rhys-Ann is a good person, and there were a lot of times in this book where I felt that Sarah J. Maas was trying to convince me that Rhys-Ann was a good person, and you're just not going to do it. It's just not going to be a thing that happens in this lifetime. But outside of that, I did really like that Feyre was actually invested in the war effort, and she was actually being included in conversations. And so even when we weren't doing things, Feyre was part of the thing. It wasn't like we were having a dinner and then like 300 pages later we'd find out that that dinner was actually important for some other reason. No, like we were in the mix at every point of the story, and I really appreciated that this time around. Nesta also has an increased role here. Elaine also has an increased role here, so that was really nice to see. But yeah, there's really not a whole lot that I can talk about this one that wouldn't be like a spoiler. So I do recommend it. I did enjoy this one. If you didn't enjoy this one, I would love to understand how and why, because that's almost blasphemous to me. The book I picked up after A Court of Wings and Ruin had to be A Court of Frost and Starlight, the bridge novella that is set between this one and the upcoming A Court of Silver Flames. I heard this is supposed to be like a bridge novel kind of a thing. I know that at the time a lot of people were really upset with this one, but I kind of liked it. I don't know if the plot about this, Illyrian situation is gonna go anywhere. I would be open to it. I also really liked how Nesta was in this one. It was markedly different than the ending we saw in A Court of Wings and Ruin. But I'm interested still. I do think that it has caught my attention, and you're also just not going to make me think that Nesta's not interesting. Like, that's, again, more blasphemy. For what? Oh, like I said, 4 to 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, even though, again, I don't think it was as bad as everyone said it was in 2018, but I also didn't read this in 2018 and, like, pay a lot of money for it. I will be adding this. I will be getting this in the matching edition, so I can spray. I'm looking forward to spraying those edges as well. But I'm happy that I was able to read this from the library first, because having read it, I do think that it'll be worthy to be on my Sarah J. Maas shelf. And then my final read, book number 102, was If We Were Us by K.L. Wather. I received this for my birthday. So I think this is in my birthday haul. Did I film a birthday haul? I think I did. I don't know. But I received this from Amazon wishlist months ago, back in June, for my birthday, and I did not like it. Again, we have accidental matching to the cover. But this is a story, it's told in dual perspective. We follow Sage and Charlie and their various love interest stages. Love interest is Charlie's twin brother Nick, and then Charlie's love interest is Luke. And it just didn't work for me. I found the pacing of this novel to just be strange. It was unbelievable at times. Like, I read a lot of, judging by this situation here, you might not see it, but I'd like to think that I read enough young adult contemporary to have like a grasp on like most, the things that people are getting into. And it just was bizarre in this one, and it just didn't work for me. I didn't believe either of the romances, either Sage and Nick or Charlie and Luke. It didn't click. It wasn't for me. 1 out of 5 stars. Would not recommend. I don't know who this is for. So that was my last month. I managed to read just shy of 7,000 pages within the last month, getting it under the wire, matching my 2019 number of books read at 102. So I love that for me. Feel free to leave this emoji down in the comment section. My best books of 2020 video is coming. I have not forgotten to film it. I filmed it once and I realized that I left a lot out. So I'm going to redo that. So that'll come out at some point. And I'll see you guys again soon in another video. But until then, and until next time,